Now, we're all here today because we love freedom, we love America. We're here for the American Patriot Rally. We also love the founding documents of our nation. So, excuse me a minute. I'm used to too many hotel lecterns here. It's so easy. The founding documents of our nation, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. I personally have served in the trenches of freedom for several decades, but yet I'm still stirred by the now immortal words in the Declaration in which Thomas Jefferson declared that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. For you see, to understand the U.S. Declaration of Independence, you must first appreciate the fact that the Declaration makes up a great deal of its philosophic foundation. Now we know that the Constitution established our government is that of a republic. That is a government of laws that govern how government would govern. But at its heart of hearts, this Constitution, as those who drafted it intended, is a freedom document. The primary job of our government then is to secure our inalienable rights. Now, moving to the money side just for a minute, there are purely economic benefits that are derived from a sound, hard money, specie, or commodity-based currency. And I'll make a quick list. It's a good time to take a pause and get a quick economics lesson. Intrinsic value, imperishability, relative scarcity, portability, divisibility, and a storehouse of value. On the other side of the coin, no pun intended, if your money is unsound, that is, it is fiat, that it is money because government compels you to accept it, it says it's money, all the above benefits will be absent. And that vacuum comes uncontrolled, unlimited government spending and subsequent borrowing from the Federal Reserve. Out of that process comes an increase in the supply of money and its effect rising prices. In other words, inflation. You go to the grocery store, you go to the gas station, you experience it. And I might add, extrapolating this and bringing this back around to immigration. Using the power to set interest rates, that is, the money masters of the Fed are able to create booms and busts, including the most recent housing bubble, which has contributed to the flood of illegal aliens across our borders seeking employment. And by the way, whether they commit crimes or not, they're costing us more money than they're bringing in. A lot of the problems with that as well. We agree with Border Watch on that 110%. But going back to money, beyond what I've just enumerated, let's consider that money in the hands of the individual is all about being free. That's why that great freedom document, the Constitution, in Article 1, Section 8, only grants Congress the power to produce and protect the value of money. Since it reads to coin money, it implicitly points to gold and silver. Now, we've read of the horrible experiences early Americans had with fiat currency. Our great-grandparents, and even I remember my grandmother saying something to the effect that something wasn't worth a continental. Founders wanted nothing more to do with fiat money. In fact, in Article 1, Section 10, they forbade the individual states from accepting anything other than gold or silver as legal tender for the payment of debts. Yeah! But even more importantly, the Founding Fathers were adamant about freedom, for they had put their lives, their reputations, their fortunes on the line for the cause of liberty and independence. They were not about to trade one form of tyranny for another. For whosoever controls fiat currency not only controls the money power, but also controls the people. For who else but people use money? Thus, control of the money is a big step on the road to tyranny, no matter what label you place on it. That's why Karl Marx thought it was so important to include in the Communist Manifesto a central bank as one of his must-dos, one of his check-offs. That central bank in our nation is known as the Federal Reserve, and together with the income tax represent the twin engines of socialism. And you know, with socialism comes controls and lots of it. And this welfare warfare state, in other words, is propelling a lot of things, including immigration, because we had virtually open borders for many decades in the 20th century, along with Mexico. Well, there was no free education. There was no free medical care. And there wasn't any housing bubble. The Fed was there, but they hadn't got so risky and risque with the money as they did later. Let's talk about sovereignty for a minute in light of the recent G20 meeting in London. If our fiat dollar, if China and Russia have their way, would be rejected as a reserve currency by the leading nations of the world, then there likely would be a new international or regional currency waiting in the wing. And we've all heard about the Amero, proposed currency for a proposed merger under NAFTA called the North American Union, extending from the Security and Prosperity Partnership, or SPP. If you'd like more information on that, we have some at our information table. There could be an international currency managed by the International Monetary Fund, transformed into a global, as the IMF would turn into a global Federal Reserve Bank. Another step on the way to global government through the United Nations. And that's why one of the reasons we say we must get us out of the United Nations. And get the United Nations out of the United States. That's the New World Order, is globalism and socialism. But the good news is that the people, if properly informed and led, still hold enough power to work through the system to restore economic and political freedom, as well as to maintain our national sovereignty. And by the way, folks, as the late farm and ranch commentator, humorist Tom Anderson used to put it, freedom is one ball of wax. That is, our political, religious, and economic freedoms and national independence are all bound up together. Likewise, the Constitution remains the law and testifies in and of itself for sound money. Use a real money, specie-backed currency, but ensure financial independence of the individual, supplying him with the wherewithal to invest, save. Investing and saving go hand in hand to drive a growing economy and produce real wealth. Thus, the restoration of gold and silver should be one of the first steps, or should be the first step toward the restoration of a sound economy for our nation. And likewise, on the path to restoring national sovereignty, getting control of our borders likewise. All these things have to be done. They need to be done simultaneously. But to restate, sound money is necessary for economic recovery, for growth, for the sustaining of the individual, for improving national wealth, and for maintaining and enhancing the freedom of the individual. But in order to make this important first step on the way to economic health and freedom through sound money, we must in turn take down the centralized mechanism for boom and bust, inflation and deflation, the endless growth of the welfare warfare state, and whatever else the elite is pushing at the present time. We must dismantle that banking and government cartel known as the Federal Reserve. We must end the Fed. I might add, a good and necessary first step to that end is to audit the Fed. Now, many of you received a handout asking for your support for H.R. 1207. That's the End the Fed bill, Audit the Fed bill, and now enjoys about 109 sponsors in the House of Representatives. Folks, that's better than a fourth of the House of Representatives. It's bottled up in the House Financial Services Committee. The chairman of that committee is Barney Frank. And we need your pressure on the Congress as a whole. We're doing a good job here in the greater Houston area, South Texas. All the Republican reps are on our side on that in South Texas and Central Texas. And we've got one Democrat. We need to talk to Gene Green, people like that as well, to get some additional numbers. Now, some would argue, well, you've had an audit of the Fed. No, we didn't. You got an inventory. They carried the pencils, the reams of paper, the desks, the computers, chairs, desks. We want a real audit. We want to see the complete balance sheet. We want to see who's been bailed out.